Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 74 of my modded Factorio playthrough. On this episode, we're going to place all of those ore washers and crushers that we created and start building our tier 2 ore washing and sorting setup. Enjoy! So we drew a line down here, which is as far right as we want to go with our builds. So the question is how far down? Well, that's a pretty straight line as far as with shoreline, and I'm fine with placing a little bit of landfill to make this easier to use. Let's extend the shoreline down to here. Just to save a little bit of landfill, I'm not going to use all of it immediately. But down to there. Then the very edge of our building. Right there. And I'll fill in the gaps a little later, once we know exactly what we're doing here. Let's see. For now, let's place some landfill here. It gets pretty expensive pretty quickly to just willy-nilly place landfill, but we have been building quite a bit of it. Alright. Out of bricks, whatever. Got a whole bunch of them building it at the base. I increased this to hold 70,000, which is an entire inventory's full of concrete, so it'll get up there eventually. Okay, so the first element of this is our train station, which needs to come in straight. Now I can build on water using bridges, but let's figure out exactly how far the train station would need to be. So basically right there. This may not be the exact place we want it, but let's just put it there to create basically the idea of how far up it needs to be. Because the train's going to need to be able to turn out as well. Now, which direction the train's going to be coming in from? Probably from above. So they're going to come in through there. And then they're going to leave this way. Something like this, and then other trains are going to be coming in through there. And if it's the same as last time, I was able to place the rail signals directly on train tracks that are over the water, or bridges that are over the water, so it shouldn't be a problem that this is going to have to extend over the water a bit. I mean, we could just add more landfill if we have to. But alright, so we know the general location of the train station. So now, the first thing that needs to be done is the ore crushing. Let's flip it the other way, because it's going to be going to the left. And we want to put it as close to this line, basically, that we decided as possible. It doesn't have to be, but it's just that's where we decided to put it, so why not? But actually, the limiting factor in width is actually going to be this right here. So let's move up a bit and create some space. So how far up is this going to need to go? Probably quite a bit. Let's see if we can guess the width without actually having to place it. We'll rotate it the other way. It won't let us flip it, but we'd probably want to flip it. But we'll deal with that later. So the width looks like it's going to be about this wide. So let's see if we can place it over there. On the right with the blueprint, and on the left we can use the character to figure out how wide it's going to be. Okay, so we're standing on the tile. So it's going to be between these 2 points. So now that we know that, we can try to place this in the middle. Let's just line it up with the train tracks. So something like this. You don't want to jam things up too close. I always want to leave a little bit of space because you never know what belts and stuff might be running through here. It runs out of charcoal pretty quick. Probably should have carried more fuel. Okay, that's the general location. Let's run some power lines just so we'll have light at night. So how is the network looking? Looking good. So you can see these steam engines are burning off the byproducts occasionally. Which is what we'd expect. But they take some of the job of the accumulator, but not all of it. Okay. Let's see, anything needing to be changed here? It's like, well, we can pipe it into the train anyway. So this needs 2 red belts. Although it'll look slightly cleaner if it was lined up immediately with this. So perhaps we should do that. But for now, 2 yellow belts makes a red belt, so if we put those 2 there, let's just put a second one there. We'll have 2 red belts, and that should balance it out. Oh yeah, it's not placing the items because the network from this is in the way. Gotta place the last bit myself. But that'll balance out exactly. The loaders really help make that a lot easier. So we have our 2 red belts. And honestly, we'd want those to line up as much as possible with these here. So what we want to do here is a 2 to 3 balancer. Because how it works is a full red belt goes in the middle, but then the other red belt gets split. I mean, I guess I don't have to use necessarily an official balancer, because I can kind of just figure out this on my own. Where one belt goes straight up, it will be lined up with here. And then the other one gets split off into 2 yellows, one of which goes that way. And the other one goes this way to go straight down that. So it'd look like this. Actually, I'm fine with there being a gap of 2 spaces here. And then something kind of like this. So let's pick up and modify this blueprint a bit. We don't use that. We don't use that. And pick up the whole thing. Then we gotta place it just like that. We can move these belts up and hook it up properly. How is the power network doing? Quite alright. Let's make this straight, just because we can. Okay, so far so good. I probably should have flipped this blueprint here, but that is alright. So these Red belts right here are the output. And we'll worry about placing them correctly in a bit. And then up top here are the belts of stone. Though we can make this a little more compact. By doing that right there. Letting the belts go up right there. And then it would run this way. Because if you look at the crushing side of the recipe, 2 red belts of Saphirite go in and 1 red belt of crushed stone comes out. And we're going to have 6 of these, which means we're going to need 6 belts of crushed stone. And actually, it makes sense just to have some spaces in here, just because you never know what's going to go there. So let's see if 4 spaces is okay. We'll do 4 spaces on each side. So we're actually going to have 6 total red belts here. 1 belt for each color. And they don't have to be balanced or anything because 1 belt is perfectly sufficient for each setup. So each setup will get a dedicated belt. However, because we're going from right to left here, if we started this one like this and then the next belt came in, it would have to go over that one and then turn in here, and it would be kind of annoying. So we can make it look cleaner if this first one goes all the way up to the top, and then the second one would come up like that, and it wouldn't require any undergrounds or anything. And let's leave 4 more spaces. Let's use the yellow belts just to mark the spaces. So then the next stage is the washing. This is going to be a lot larger and harder to place, but we want to try to center it as much as possible. So looking at the blueprint, it's got 3 input belts. So ideally we want to line up this middle input belt with this one right here. Or also this belt right here, because that's also the center line. And we probably need to clear more trees. About how many? The answer is too many. Probably make this go a lot faster by using nanobots, but that also consume a lot of resources. Can at least help them by chopping down the trees. So if we look carefully, we can line this up right here, and that is down the center line. So we move it up until it's lined up with our gaps. That looks like it. So boom. Replace it, and the robots have a field day with all the work they have in front of them. Try to centrally place this as close to the middle as possible. One thing that's changed on our factory is that we're no longer dumping saline water at the source. So this part of the design is probably going to change. Actually, only one of these is for saline water. The rest of them are for the sulfuric wastewater. How are the robots doing? Their first charge. They all come out at the same time, so then they all need to charge at the same time. And then once they're good, they kind of even out and then do their job individually. It's kind of funny how that works. But it means we probably only need to remove this one clarifier for the saline water. These other 5 are for the sulfuric wastewater if we get too much of it. And we might need to have clarifiers for the mineralized water as well. But right now we're successfully turning it into plastic, but it might get to the point where we cannot. Another thing that's kind of different is I was thinking we need a separate belt for each byproduct, like sulfur, whatever. Because to determine when we have too much and when to switch over to dumping, these machines would need to be backed up. I was thinking we need a belt for each item, but that's actually not necessarily true, though we can actually use the circuit network instead to turn on and off the clarifiers whenever they become relevant. So that way we'd be able to combine all of the output onto lesser number of belts. Which looks like we'd have 6 of these setups, which would require 1.5 red belts, or 2 red belts. So there's some extra spaces in here, but the belts would go the other direction. So they'd go this way. And there's certain elements of this design that need to be reversed. Like the 2 inputs. It wouldn't let me flip the design here, but one of these is an input and one of them is a bypass. So we need to get that set up correctly. And also connect this thing to power. This would probably be a good use for an electric pole here. Something like that. Well, since we're only going to need 2 belt spaces here, I'm fine with crunching this down a little bit. It would leave slightly more spaces than we intended here, but this is the place where we'd want spaces. This is where basically a bus is going to be with lots of resources, so this is where space is desired. Here, you know, space is much less desirable. So it makes sense to scrunch it in there as much as reasonably possible. Pick it up and then place it back down. 2 spaces closer. Okay, so we need to have 2 belts coming along the side here. Coming from down here. One of them is a bypass that will keep going down its merry way. It is the crushed stone that's going directly to sorting, while the other half of the crushed stone is going in to be washed and turned into the chunks. So we just need to kind of reverse this a little bit. This is a yellow belt. It seems like it would have needed to be a red. It seems like there would have been throughput problems if that wasn't a red. Because if the supply started as red, it usually means it has to stay red along most of its course. Only when it got to this point could it be yellow. There's a little bit of a problem with the exact position of that there, but we'll just hop over it. Okay, why isn't it getting power? What wire isn't connected that I'm not seeing? Oh, we're out of power poles. That one isn't placed. Do we have any, or do we just use them all? Did I not pick up any extras? I kind of recall not picking up extras. Looks like we needed quite a few. Well, let's just build them for now. Oh, I guess I did have some in my inventory. Could have popped in there. Oh well. I don't like how all the power is just going through that one little wire. So probably can pick some of these up. Let's see, can we skip? Let's try to do that. And run another one over here. It's kind of freaking me out having it being upside down compared to how it was designed. So it's kind of got me thrown through a loop here. But okay, we have our outputs, which go there. We can kind of move this down a bit. We don't need these placeholders anymore. We can kind of put those 6 there to remind us that there's 6 total belts going in there. We can do the same here. There's 2 belts. So this one bypasses. Goes all the way down. And this needs to be reversed as well. that these two belts on the outside are the chunks. And then these two belts here are the geodes. Well, let's see if we can pick that part of the design up and then flip it. Let's make the bot's job a little easier and drive up there. Because the bots are so slow, it actually saves them a lot of time by putting them in close proximity to the thing you want them to do. So if we pick all that up, now we can flip it. How many geodes are we going to be running? Okay, the same number. Which means as long as we have 3 or less groups of flotation cells, we only need to have one of the 3 red belts. Let's kind of pick all this up again. And that can be up there. And we'll worry about combining them later when that becomes relevant. So there's our geode output. There's one belt there, but let's put the second marker there for the other belt. I'll just leave that empty space there since that'll be required to set up the belts like they were. And now we have our output of chunks. We're going to have 6 total belts of them. Actually, this can still be yellow. Research is done. How are we doing on all of the resources? Hey, look at that. We've built up sulfuric acid again. The factory is limited on bronze. I see. There should probably be a splitter there to give bronze some priority of tin. Noted. Otherwise, it looks pretty good there. The fuel is backing up as intended. We don't have any extra residual gas. We don't have any extra hydrogen. I think it's working. Okay. Well, let's keep it busy. These researches take a long time. I have them set so expensive specifically to give the factory something to do while I'm not researching stuff because I'm not in the habit of researching every single thing I can. So I still want the factory to stay productive in that time, though. Let's see, so this can come up here. And then these go up and combine into a red belt. Although, might want to make them go up higher. Because we're going to have a lot of resources running down here. We're going to have the 2 belts of geodes. And then we're going to have 6 belts of crushed stone. So we might as well leave 2 spaces in between there to help everything stay sorted out. So that's 1 belt. We're actually going to have 6. So it actually makes sense to go up that one. So then these probably need to be moved a lot higher up. So we want to have 2 spaces. And then our 6. Well, if that's the case, let's see, let's just move these belts towards the center. And then they'll be lined up right on the center line right there. Then we can turn them into red belt. Right, so we have our belt over there for the chunks, which goes all the way up there. But these kind of interfere slightly with that new change in position. We're going to want our 6 belts of crushed stone going in there, which moves it up by 1 space. And it's got a 3-space gap here, but that's not a problem. I wasn't specifically doing that just to have 2 spaces in between each one of them. And looks like this one has to be moved up a space as well. Thinking that looks pretty aligned. I think all of the pipes are already connected. We'll need to connect in the water right here, but luckily it's really close because we have a coastline right there. So we've got the input side of the train tracks are going to be up here. They're going to turn in, turning to the right, come in and park, unload, then turn to the right and go back out. That'll keep the trains all the way on the edge of the landmass, so they're not taking up any valuable space for buildings and setups and whatnot. And then they'll probably match up here. Our output is 2 belts going straight, and then they split in to ore crushing to get crushed. Where the crushed stone output combines here and goes out here, and we'll have 6 belts of that in total, so they'll take up this space in the middle. And there's some extra space in there for any other belts or machines or whatever that we're not thinking about that might need to go in there. So it has 2 crushed belts of output. 1 belt is a bypass that skips all of the washing. The other belt goes into the washing and gets washed. It sends its dirty water down to these hydro plants, and they clean and put their output on this belt here, and we'll need up to 2 of them, so then they'll be going here and going straight. The byproducts of washing, the geodes, get combined up here, and we'll have 2 belts of that. The belt of crushed stone that is bypassing the washers goes on this group of 6 belts. And then the washed ores, the chunks, go up here onto those 6 belts. And that's basically that. And then from here, this is where the ore sorting will happen, is lined up right here. And let's check our work, actually, now that we're right back up to the coal. Let's see if we didn't take up any space we weren't supposed to. And we did not. It's right up on the line. And that's not a specific spacing, it's just whatever. I just didn't want any train tracks or anything to run over the coal. If it does, though, it's not that big a deal. But we're all set up. And this is the complete in-place pattern. The only thing it lacks is water. So now we can place all of these. And this is when things get time-consuming. So next step here is to clear out all of the trees we're going to need. And we know the end point is right here, so we want to start clearing trees approximately at this point. And we know the start point is right here. It's probably mostly going to be water, and we're going to pick up fish and whatever, but this is the part we need to clear. And we don't know exactly how far out it's going to be. It could calculate it, I suppose, but let's go to this point right here. Seems like we're picking up lots of fish. Let's just do that and see what happens. And now we wait. Just got to let all the bots clear all this out. Definitely trying to help out the bots here using the excavator. That actually takes down trees pretty quick. They're not too dense here, so it's not helping too much. But close enough. You can see I grabbed quite a few trees on my own. So did the bots. Just about ran out of the charcoal. So it's filling it up with wood instead. Charcoal has 3 times as much fuel as the wood does, so it's going to go through wood very quickly. But I don't want to run back to the base just for that. Okay. We've cleared out a section here. Well, this is going to be no good. And I don't have any bricks to place down there. I just have to remember bricks need to go there. But now it's time to pick this thing up. Let's use this pattern since it wasn't being used before. Let's see. I admit it's not particularly efficient for the bots to pick up the entire pattern and place it all at once because they can't possibly reach the whole thing, but it might be easier for planning purposes. So let's just pick up the whole thing, grab it, and let's see what to change. Probably that power pole there. And some of the belts will need to be moved around, but that should basically be the setup. And now we need to place it. Although, before we commit to this, we probably should check to make sure that this actually works. We checked before, but then we moved some things around. And also it's in place, and the entire thing is now together. And this would be the first time it was tested with everything hooked up. So it's probably a good idea to test everything. Let's see, do we have the resources necessary to build things to test it with? Kind of, but not really. Let's just build strong boxes, I guess. Because we're going to need a strong box to pick up the crushed stone. Otherwise, it will come to a halt pretty quick. And we're going to need to do the same thing for the water byproducts. 3 more boxes. One of these is for the geodes. This is the crushed ore, and that is the washed ore. And it should run with all of that. And it doesn't have a place for all of the mineralized water to go. We will figure that out later. And actually, it doesn't have a place for the saline water either. So let's just place this back in, just to make sure that it works. And this should be enough so that it will keep running even if they don't have a place to go, because that's the point of all the clarifiers, is to get rid of it if it doesn't have anywhere to go. Okay, so we need to get some water in here. I don't think we bought any water pumps. So we need water coming in here, but because of this position, it probably makes sense to put it right here. So let's just run it up to right there. Let's see, can we put a pump right there? No, but with some landfill we probably could. There we go. We have to remember that spot to put a little bit of concrete as well. But water is not flowing because that one is one space too far. Whoops. There we go. Water's hooked up. It's consuming all of its saline water. And the purified water is filling up. And it's going to fill up until it hits 80%. Well, instead of picking up and carrying a bunch of Saphirite ore to this train station, it'd be nice just to send a train here instead. And that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we need to expand our rail network and bring some Saphirite in here automatically and see how all of this works in the field. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.